What is up, everybody? Welcome. Happy Thursday. Welcome back to the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. My buddy John is here with me today, and we are talking about Jalen Carter news. Players are in Indianapolis. They're being interviewed. Their whole NFL combine is happening, and lo and behold, some what seems like pretty ridiculously devastating news is released, but we're going to get into, is it really that devastating? What exactly happened? What exactly has Jalen Carter been charged with? And what does it all mean for the University of Georgia? All that and more coming up today on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. John, from famously from John Tweets Sports on Twitter, at John Tweets Sports, maybe the biggest Georgia Twitter celebrity there is these days. I mean, he's getting media requests left and right. I think Anderson Cooper called him this morning, wanted to know if he could come on real quick and do a quick spot. But he's here on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast, home where he belongs. John, welcome. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, listen, I'm doing great. I have two safe spaces.
Okay.
Twitter.com.
Yep.
And the Locked On Bulldogs podcast.
That's right. Do you have
all
a safe
other media?
Do you have a safe word in case we get to that point in the show today? Will that be needed?
No, my safe word is just a loud groan, and I disappear off of the screen. So.
Wow. All right. I feel like I regret that I asked you already. John, it's a weird day to be a Georgia fan. Clint and I famously in our pre-production meetings get on here, what nobody gets to see. We should start recording our pre-production meetings and releasing it as a separate podcast, because I feel like the comic value of that would be worthwhile. Clint and I, in our pre-production meetings for months, have just been moaning about the fact that there's no news. There's nothing, Jordan. There's nothing to talk about. There's no.
So you've been using my safe word for months, is what you just told me.
That is correct.
Okay, got it.
We didn't even realize that, but we immediately all actions were ceased towards you, all
Perfect.
the time.
Okay, got it.
So, and now lo and behold, we do get some content. We do get something to talk about. And we don't want to talk about it because it's dumb and it's ridiculous and there's not a lot of facts and information out there. But let's start there because we're going to get to Jalen Carter and what actually happened and what he's been charged with and all that. But first of all, let me say that if you're a member of the media and particularly I'm looking at you, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and let's be honest, nobody has ever mistaken the AJC with an objective journalistic outlet. No one has ever made the mistake of confusing the AJC with that. But if you're Mark Bradley or Chip Towers, then there's a narrative out there that's being spun by the AJC that now, after all this has happened, it's time that we hear from Kirby Smart, John. This is the quote from Mark Bradley that's being purported by the AJC and all of its little lackeys. It's time that we hear from Kirby Smart because, and I will, just to clarify, because a non-member of the UGA football team,
correct,
committed a misdemeanor,
correct,
that happened on the same night as when a staffer and a football player, neither of which any of us have ever met or had anything to do with, neither of which have ever impacted our personal lives. We've never had a one-on-one conversation with. We have never related to in a real human world. They passed away, lost their lives tragically. and another person who we've never met or interacted with in any way, shape, or form committed 2 misdemeanors on that same night. And now it's time for a fourth person who we've never met or had any face-to-face personal interactions with. It's time for him to explain to us what has exactly happened, because by God, we deserve it, John. We deserve to know all the gruesome details of a night when two young people tragically met their end. That's what the AJC would have you believe, that we, the just random public, deserve all of the gory details of this tragic event that has really nothing to do with us in any way, shape, or form. Am I getting that correct?
You're getting it correct. Listen, this is what Mark Bradley wrote in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution today. Not since the morning of January 10th has Smart been made available to the media. He offered a statement in the wake of the January 15th crash, but Smart has not answered questions about his program. Then he said, he talked about the statement that Kirby Smart issued for Jalen Carter, and he said, Smart deemed them deeply concerning. They led us to wonder what's going on over there. That was Mark Bradley in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution today. Kirby Smart has not been made available to the media to answer questions. Listen, Kirby Smart, 2 members of his program died tragically in an accident on January 15th. Tragically.
Yes.
And do you think that Kirby Smart has not been answering questions in his athletic department, to his family, to those programs members' family, to all of the people that he cares about, that are looking to him for leadership?
Oh, you mean the people that actually matter?
That actually matter.
He has been made available to them, Mark.
Absolutely.
He's been made available on a constant basis to 100%. Everyone who matters, Mark.
100%.
And just to clarify, you, Mark, and me, and 99.9% of the people listening to this podcast do not fall into the category of people who actually matter when it comes to an event like this. An event that your media outlet wanted to portray in terms of some sort of shady behavior and some sort of, by the way, the tragedy when 2 young people lost their lives, that you tried to drag their name through the mud before the casket was even closed.
Correct. I mean, this is the same. So this is the same newspaper that not only reported where the people who died tragically, where they had left from that evening before their fatal accident, which in all honesty, good on them. To me, like, investigate, write your stories. But these people went the next weekend and staked out.
Here we are. Here we go.
And staked out a location like TMZ paparazzi. When 2 people are already dead, when people are dealing with this situation already, they go and send 2 reporters to actually, I guess they sat across the street in an unmarked car with binoculars. I don't know what,
it's literally like a Kramer and Newman situation there, just across the street.
Absolutely. And so at the end of the day, there is absolutely a place for honest, good intended investigative journalism in this world. What the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is doing right now is not that.
It's not even close to that.
It's not even close. No, and let's talk about this. We can talk about this maybe in the second segment.
Yeah, let's hold till the second segment. All right, AJC, you're the worst. We're not finished with you. We'll come back. But let me tell you who else we're not finished with. Today's episode brought to you by the fine folks over at FanDuel. We love FanDuel. It is March Madness. It's March. John, happy March.
Man.
We've made it to March. It's one of the greatest months of the year, not only because it includes March Madness, but it means the Masters is right around the corner. The NBA season is in full swing. There is tons to bet on. And FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is the place that you need to go to make all of those wagers. Because at FanDuel, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back in your account if your bet doesn't win. If your bet does win, you get cold hard cash in your account. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use, and then bet on everything you love from March Madness to the NBA season. They've got all sorts of different bets that you can make on NBA. You get 2 3-pointers scored in the first 3 minutes of the game. You got player props. You can include point spreads, money lines, most points scored, all of that stuff. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at bigger payouts with same-game parlays. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the web address right there, FanDuel.com/locked-on, to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and the official sportsbook of the Locked On Bulldogs. All right, John, I cut you off before the break because I had to pay the bills. Go ahead.
Let's talk about let's talk about the integrity of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Oh,
I'm
done.
not sure.
Sorry. And the conversation ended abruptly.
I'm not sure when they received the information that they reported yesterday. But there was something happening yesterday. Yesterday was the media availability for the NFL Combine.
That's right. Yeah. Indianapolis.
Jalen Carter
there. Yep.
Indianapolis. Jalen Carter was there. Jalen Carter was scheduled to meet with the media to answer questions.
Mm-hmm.
Just so happens, I mean, Daniel, total coincidence. The AJC just happened to get this information. Just happened to get it. Happened to get it, and happened to run the story on a Wednesday morning.
It's also a total coincidence that whenever programs have bad news to release about their program, they release it at Friday at 5:00. It's just total coincidence. Just so happens.
It just so happens
the way it worked out.
It just so happens. So at the end of the day, for me, how they started this investigation into this, how the AJC started it, and then when they've chosen to release information is absolutely nothing short of gutless and cowardly, in my opinion. Run the story. I mean, let's go. If you have information, if you have the story, run the story. But to sit on it and try to maximize their clicks, maximize their eyeballs, is absolutely, especially when 2 people died. I mean, this isn't, at the end of the day, there are, I think when it comes to this type of journalism, there's times when it's like, all right, this person, has issues going on. Let's try a gotcha moment. Let's figure like that stuff happens. 2 people tragically died in an accident.
And you're trying to get clicks. And you're shamelessly trying to get clicks. It's Mark Bradley, Chip Towers, open invite to come on the pod and attempt to defend yourself. I would love it.
I want to know. I need the media to be available to me so that I can ask them when they learned this information, how long they sat on it before they decided to write the story on the day that Jalen Carter was going to go in front of the media. What other information are they sitting on that they're going to string out over the next 2 to 3 weeks as Jalen Carter gets ready for the NFL draft?
That Devin and Chandler's parents can have to suffer more again later.
Just drag it out. Please,
let's just drag it out. Let's do that. Yeah. Listen, the narrative, and we'll get to exactly, by the way, what was the news that was broken by the AJC in just a second. Yeah. But let me just end the conversation about how despicable the media is as a member of the media, apparently. The idea that anyone owes the media anything in sports is insane. It's so ludicrously laughable.
Literally,
that, like it has no grounding in any sort of reality whatsoever. You have a job to do. And I commend you for doing your job. I also have a job to do, and I'm out here trying to do my job as well. Sometimes your job is easy, and sometimes your job is hard. It's sort of like most other jobs in the world. The fact that you believe that your job should always be made easy by other people shows me that you have sort of lost touch with what it feels like to have an other job, like a real job, like a real person's job. Because if you think that Kirby Smart owes you an explanation for this, just so that you can have an easier time writing your story and getting your clicks and keeping your subscribers, then that's a you problem. Like, that's not what is reality. Reality is that you have a job to do, and the job the AJC has done, they've done all this work. They have dragged this thing out. They have made a stab at breaking some news that, you know, is going to try to sabotage a person's career as well as, you know, rehash, you know, the tragic events where two people lost their lives. And they did it all because Jalen Carter has been charged with 2 traffic misdemeanors. He has been charged by the police.
Yes.
With 2 misdemeanors.
Yes.
And that is the end of the list of things that the AJC has reported to us.
Correct.
2 tickets have been issued. That's not me making light of the situation or belittling the situation. That's literally what a traffic misdemeanor is. Literally. It's a ticket. And so 2 tickets have been issued for Jalen Carter, for which he is going to have to go and answer and make right in the court of law or the legal system or however the thing plays out. But the idea that Jalen Carter has been charged with some sort of a connection or in any way to the tragedy that happened that night is all hearsay, and it's all intentionally done by said journalists in an effort to shroud the facts of what they're actually presenting in a way that makes you go, ooh, is that something more than what that is? When in reality, it in fact is not.
Yeah.
So why has Kirby Smart not answered for the fact that a player not on his team got 2 traffic misdemeanors charged to him? Why is that? Why is he not telling us more about that?
Right. Exactly. Listen. At the end of the day, there is. I firmly believe that in this situation, if Athens Clarke County had information that was more than those 2 traffic misdemeanors, they have there's no reason for them to not go ahead and be law enforcement and go ahead and do their job and push charges. This didn't happen. This happened January 15th. Yeah. So we're 2.5, almost 3 months away from, or we're almost 2 full months away from a month and a half away removed. And so at the end of the day, you know, is there a chance? Yes. The way that this process works, like, you know, like all things, all investigations, is there a chance that a solicitor general or somebody like gets more information and decides to try to, you know, upgrade charges? Yes, there is a chance that could happen. But the likelihood of that seems pretty small in light of the seriousness of the situation, where 2 people have died, that now somehow there's going to be more charges come to light. Now, the other thing is that the way law enforcement works when there are fatalities that are not directly involved, right? So we'll say racing. Let's say, like, you know, racing, somebody went off the road. a little, not direct causation. There wasn't an accident that happened, right? The cars didn't hit each other.
Mhm.
I'm not a lawyer, but it seems like the district attorney or someone involved would consult with the victims' families and say, hey, this is the information that we have, and not consult on what we should charge, but share that information if there was something related to that. And so for me, I reckless driving and street racing is, I'm not trying to diminish the situation, but those
Sure.
two tickets, if I go get in my 2020 Ford Explorer, gonna flex on y'all a little bit. If I go get my 2020 Ford Explorer,
M-dubs, you can't hide it. He
and I
comes on
go
here.
and I drive over to Kennesaw to Town Center Mall parking lot.
We've all been there. You
Yeah,
want to talk about a place where
E-
we've all raced.
Exactly. And my neighbor lines up his Subaru Forester, which I'm gonna smoke. And
The
we
thing runs on granola.
Yeah, and we race across that parking lot, and the police see us. They're going to give us reckless driving and street racing tickets. That's what's
And
going
Mark Bradley, 2.5 months from now, is going to write a story about
to
it.
write a story and say my I guess my parents need to be made available to the media. I don't know, but
Well,
yes,
why isn't Daniel talking more? Why isn't Daniel talking to us about John's tickets?
but that is what we're dealing with at this moment, and so it's a sad situation to me because, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, this situation has been known for quite some time.
Yep.
And for the AJC to strategically release information and for the parents of Devin and Chandler, who likely knew some of this information already, to continue to spin it out and turn it out it's just embarrassing.
I mean, yeah,
for the AJC.
It's embarrassing for everyone. Let's give some final thoughts. Let's wrap up the conversation when we come back. All right, John. Final thoughts on this. Does Kirby have a problem at the University of Georgia? This is now, just the narrative is spinning. The Twitter machine is hard at work. And so I'm sure you've seen that Kirby's got a mess on his hands. He's got a real problem on his hands. This is why it's important that he come out and talk about this publicly to the media, because he has a huge problem on his hands. Does Kirby, other than the fact that he is continuing to have to deal with the tragedy, an unexpected loss of life, which actually is a mess and is a real problem, but is not what anybody's talking about. You see any sort of problem in the Kirby Smart camp here? Is this a administrative failure? Is this a failure to lead properly? Is that what's going on here?
How long has Kirby Smart been the head coach of the University of Georgia?
It's been nigh on 7 years now.
7 years, yeah. How many of these recruiting weekends occur? How many times are recruiting staffers giving players a ride somewhere? How many times are college kids out in Athens on a weekend night? Over that 7-year period, I would guess it's been a lot.
Countless numbers of times.
I would guess there's been countless numbers. We probably could count if we counted the weekends, I guess. But
I wouldn't do it.
But I don't know. I'm not good at math.
I don't have that kind of time.
Absolutely. So, for me, when I look at this situation, separating tragic events, separating issues where, players, college age kids get in trouble on a college campus in a college town from time to time, to try to push that into a systemic problem in the football program or a systemic leadership failure of Kirby Smart, who was probably in his bed sleeping when legal age people were out,
grown adults
over the age of 18 were out on the college town. To me, I think to stretch this situation, because it is tragic, it's an absolute tragedy. But to stretch this incident that occurred over a 7-year period, when a guy has shown to be a strong leader of a program, to have players who have consistently said, he's made me a better man, he's made me a better husband, he's made me a better father. But players that he coached at Alabama all the way through Georgia, to act like this is some systemic issue that Kirby Smart has on his hands that he needs to answer for is absolutely ludicrous. What I'll also point to is Kendall Milton's dad, Chris Milton, father of ballers on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. It's a great follow. It's a great follow if you want to just go ahead and get over.
I would imagine that a parent of a current player is probably pretty tied in. Would you think?
Well, here's what I would stretch that a little further, John, and say I would imagine if there's going to be one person who's going to want to know if Kirby Smart has a problem that's going to put my son in jeopardy, like this is the most important thing that 100%. I could ever know as a parent 100%. is the person who is overseeing my son's present and future. Is he trustworthy? I would say Chris Milton probably falls into that camp.
Absolutely. Someone was speculating on Twitter today and said the University of Georgia football is a mess right now. There's lots of explaining to do. That's what this person tweeted. And Chris Milton, the father
all the way from California,
the father of a current UGA football player who could take his son out of the program and put him in the transfer portal if he felt like there was safety issues or leadership issues or any of those issues.
He should do that.
He should do that.
He should do that.
And he should do that. He replied, "No, the university nor its football program is a mess. This is coming from a firsthand, all capital letters, vantage point. These are off-field issues that are happening with someone who is no longer enrolled in the University of Georgia. Georgia will be fine." That's what a current parent who cares about their kid deeply, who wants their kid to be safe, who is entrusting their kid clear across the country into the hands of Kirby Smart and his leadership of this program, responded today. And so when I saw that, I already felt, the answer to no, there's not an issue with the program because of Kirby's track record, because he's been there for so long, because, the way that he's handled situations in the past, right? I mean, the guy is a strong leader of young men. And so, but when I saw that was immediate validation for me that if a parent is going on a public social media website everything that he says, the media, everyone else can look at and say,
immediately screenshot it and lives forever.
Yeah, take it and keep it forever. For him to say that was all I needed to see.
Yeah. In summary, the AJC, as long as people like this and stories like this are what they're about, the AJC does not deserve your clicks. It does not deserve your patronage. It does not deserve any of the attention that it is being given. And so do the right thing and don't talk about non-things. And if you do talk about them in a sensible way, a respectful way, and not in any way similar to the way that Mark Bradley talks about them. That's just a general rule for life. Don't talk about things the way that Mark Bradley talks about them. Absolutely. All right, John, I appreciate you jumping on the mics and discussing a difficult subject with us. Clint and John Garcia will be back tomorrow with some recruiting news and lots more on the University of Georgia football program. And we will see you guys then.